Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari God, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtapraisha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the second day of December 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the fourth canto entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 28, Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life. Next number? 18. Lokantadam gatavati Mayanatha kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati Lokantarang gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam vesha Balakan anushochati Lokantarang gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati Lokantarang gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati Lokantaram gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati Lokantaram gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati. Go ahead. Lokantaram gatavati Balakan anushochati Lokantarang gatavati Mayanata kutumbini Vartishyate katam tvesha Balakan anushochati. Now, Lokantaram, into a different life. Gatavati mayi, when I am gone. Anatha, bereft of husband. Kutumbini, surrounded by all family members. Vartishyate, will exist. Katam, how? Tu, then. Esha, this woman. Balakan, children. Anushochati, lamenting about. Translation. King Puranjan was anxiously thinking, alas, my wife is encumbered by so many children. When I pass from this body, how will she be able to maintain all these family members? Alas, she will be greatly harassed by thoughts of family maintenance. Purport. All these thoughts of one's wife indicate that the king was overly engrossed with the thoughts of woman. Generally, a chaste woman becomes a very obedient wife. This causes a husband to become attached to his wife, and consequently he thinks of his wife very much at the time of death. This is a very dangerous situation, as is evident from the life of King Puranjan. If one thinks of his wife instead of Krishna at the time of death, he will certainly not return home back to Godhead, but will be forced to accept the body of a woman and thus begin another chapter of material existence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So, I don't think this was read, although I missed a few classes here and there. But did anyone, Maharaj referred to it, but I don't think he read it. This is the, this is Prahlad Maharaj's teachings to his classmates, where he gives a very graphic description of the attached householder. He waves like a silkworm. I think he referred to it, but I don't know if he read it. It's very dramatic. I don't read this. There's a nice little purport here too. So the context is Prahlad Maharaj is teaching his friends and classmates Bhagavat Dharma in the absence of the teachers, obviously, who were doing tiffin hour. It's described, Prabhupada uses that phrase. In other words, they're going to take their lunch, and Prahlad takes the opportunity to teach his friends. Revolutionary. So he's trying to get them understand in a few words the attachments and the difficulty of ordinary material life, and especially in their situation, they're going to become out and out demons and become very attached and very buried in illusion. So he has this 3 verses here. I'll just give you a taste of the Sanskrit, then I'll read the English. Katam priyaya anukampitaya sangam rahasyam ruchadangscha mantran suritsutat sitakshishunam kalaksharanam anurakta chitta. How can a person who is most affectionate to his family, the core of his heart being always filled with their pictures, give up their association? Specifically, a wife is always very kind and sympathetic and always pleases her husband in a solitary place. Who could give up the association of such a dear and affectionate wife? Small children talk in broken language, very pleasing to hear, and their affectionate father always thinks of their sweet words. How could he give up their association? One's elderly parents and one's sons and daughters are also very dear. A daughter is especially dear to her father, and while living at her husband's house, she's always in his mind. Who could give up that association? Aside from this, in household affairs, there are many decorated items of household furniture, and there are also animals and servants. Who could give up such comforts? The attached householder is like a silkworm, which weaves a cocoon in which it becomes imprisoned, unable to get out, simply for the satisfaction of 2 important senses, the genitals and the tongue. One is bound by material conditions. How can one escape? Okay, so Prabhupada reiterates this in the purport. So, this is the situation of Puranjan. He spent his whole life cultivating his attachments to his wife and his children, and now that the end is coming and his city of his body is being attacked by time and by the daughter of time, which is invalidity and disease and all these things, what is he thinking of? What's his mind filled with? Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Bol. So naturally the thoughts that occupy oneself during lifetime are the prominent thought that overtakes one at the time of death. Prabhupada explains this in the purport in the Bhagavad Gita in that famous verse, Yang yang bhavi smarang bhavam chachachante kalevam tam tame vaidikontaya sadatad bhava bhavita, in the beginning of the 8th chapter. After explaining this previous verse, if one remembers me, one comes to me, then he says, whatever is the most prominent thought, that will determine your next life. So this is basic Krishna conscious philosophy, transmigration of the soul, and this whole allegory of Puranjan is illustrating the danger of allowing oneself to become completely absorbed in material thoughts and in household life, and the wife and the children. You know, I never had wife and children, but I was a child at one time, as we all were, and we know the deep web, the thick web of attraction and affection and love that binds you with your parents and the brothers and the siblings and the whole thing. This is the material entanglement. And so that's being illustrated very graphically here. And he's now thinking, what will happen when I leave, when I'm dead? You know, my wife is going to be left, and how she will support all these children. And the mind is just imagine the situation. You know, the whole body is being destroyed. That's one anxiety. But all of your dear loved ones who are dependent on it, your attention, your affection has been directed to them, and now you're leaving, and you know it's a tremendously disturbing experience. So this is what Krishna consciousness is meant to avoid. By the time we get to that point where we're leaving our body, our attention and our attraction and our consciousness is meant to be fixed on Krishna. And the whole process of Krishna consciousness, as you all know, it's a whole lifestyle. It's not just once a week go to the yoga studio or something, and then do a little exercise at home. That's just a perversion of yoga. It's employing this specific part of Ashtanga yoga, which is Hatha yoga, the asanas, for material purposes. I mean, I started yoga doing that specifically to regain my health after a heavy bout with hepatitis. And because, I came in touch with the devotees eventually through my interest in yoga, I was able to take up this process, which is real yoga, Bhakti yoga. Yoga is meant to solve the whole dilemma of life, to give you perfection in lifetime, not simply to improve your health or your weight or your flexibility of all these different things. So Prabhupada would often talk about that because he saw it directly. And Bhagavatam is filled with it. Just like that, there's this teachings of Prahlad I just read. There's this whole allegory of Puranjan, and the next canto, as I pointed out, is very dramatic. The forest of enjoyment, where it's really heavy. It's the most graphic and a powerful description of material attachment, and more than just attachment, the suffering that you undergo when your heart and your focus and your faith is all directed toward matter, toward material energy, and you can see how all-pervading it is. Everyone is born with a body, right? Just human beings, and the situation you find yourself in is you have no idea how you got there. Most people are completely ignorant, and then you somehow try to eke out. In so even so very difficult circumstances, people establish some kind of relationship and they have sex and there's some dependent, and in this world your material situation is so fragile. India has become a horror story. You remember what happened when first of all, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where suddenly the money wasn't worth anything? When did they have that money thing?
4 years ago.
Yeah, but was it 4 years ago? 2016. So all of a sudden, people were trying to say that people were hoarding a lot of cash, right? I mean, they didn't trust the bank, so there was no bank. Huh? Yeah, suddenly the money they have, you get on a line and you can't change it up. And suddenly they had nothing. People committed suicide. And then when this COVID thing hit, it was like, okay, you got 3 hours to you can't work in your job on the street anymore. People started trying to go home, and traveling. They died on the way. It's such a material life is so fragile. Here we are sitting here, 2 blocks from the beach, I mean, I remember, I think it was 2011, when that horrific tsunami hit Japan and wrecked the Fukushima nuclear plant, and good grief, it was like 9. It was a 9. I haven't even heard of a 9. We have 4 and 5 around here sometimes. And it was just, they had pictures of it. There's this tidal wave coming in, flooding everything, and wrecking the plant, which are built specifically near the ocean for the cooling effect. We have one right up here on the coast here. I think they decommissioned it a while back. But what happens? You've got all of this is all for making it very convenient, so you can flip on your switch and you can have your electricity. But the cost is, you're risking, like, if this thing would have, it's still got, it still have all of the waste up there, nobody wants to take that, it's very, and if that stuff gets liberated and free out of the thing, then it can wreck this whole Southern California. It becomes uninhabitable. We're sitting here day by day, just like COVID hit. No one expected it. This is an utter disaster. So, this is the nature of material life. It's a very fragile situation. When you just contemplate, as we're taught to do in Krishna conscious philosophy, the fragility of our situation in the material world. Krishna has that one line, Janma Mrityu Jara Vadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam, which is so key. And Bhagavatam expands on that and shows how there's no safety, there's no security, and ultimately no happiness in the material life. But every birth without the transcendental knowledge will be bewildered in every form of life, especially the human form of life, into thinking that this is my situation. Let me, I can somehow become happier. This is what it is. So this is one of the horrors of dying in material consciousness. You've established all of these loving relationship. This is like ordinary family life. He's got the kids, he's got his wife, right? And Prabhupada describes how the wife, becomes very dear to the husband by service and by submissiveness, Imagine the attachment that develops over year after year like that. And naturally there's the children, and then there's the elders. That's also a big thing. I mean, I remember, devotees, one after another, you would say, oh, I have to leave my service, I have to go take care of my mother or my father. They don't have anybody, like that. This crazy world, everything is atomized, and you wouldn't see them for months and months. I was spared that. My mother took care of my father, and my brother took care of my mother. So I was able to, not worry about that. But that's part of it. There's a whole web of attachments and affection and strong emotion that make you go here and there and cause you tremendous worry and pain. So Krishna consciousness, you can see why it's based on changing your desires. The whole thing is redirecting your desires and your hopes, your aspirations. Asha. The word asha is so important. We chant every morning in several places in that song, the Tulsi song. My ardent desire is to become a servant of Radha and Krishna. My ardent desire is to float along in the ocean of love of Radha and Krishna. My desire is to become your maidservant. It's a very high prayer, actually, we sing. So by chanting Hare Krishna, by serving Tulsi, by engaging in devotional service, by dovetailing the activities of the senses, it's a science, how is the affection and attachment developed? By first of all coming in contact with it. Dhyayato vishayan pungsa sangas teshu bhajayate. You see an object of the sense, a woman or a man for a woman. Then it's built in. It's programmed in. There's some attachment developed. There's attraction. And if you pursue that, then it can develop into a very strong kama. Sangas chandayate kama. It's interesting. Sangha means both attachment and association, right? Attachment, association. Because by that association, the attachment grows. And practically one develops from the other. So that and it grows stronger and stronger until it's a very, very powerful force in your heart. I want to engage with that object or that person. It's very strong. And so that when we yield to that, when we're controlled by that, those emotions and that attachment, we get tied up. It's just like this silkworm. We ourselves are weaving our own cocoon, and we're trapped in there. And then when death comes, the horrors of the silk. As we try to find a ahimsa silk, if you're going to get silk for the deity, right, or get silk for yourself. Does people still worry about that? I remember I worried about that. A garment made from, numerous silkworms getting boiled alive. Not a nice thing. So here we have this lamentation. Here's his final moments in his palace or his city of his body, and what is he thinking of? Oh, his poor wife, poor wife. So naturally, that's the title of the chapter. He becomes a wife in his next. He becomes a woman in his next life. But with all of this attachment, there was also some sacrifice, some positive punya that he took with him, which gave him, yes, he became a woman, he got married to this king Malayadwaja, but he turned out to be a Paka devotee. And eventually Puranjan in his next life meets the super soul. It's very dramatic. And there's some just to alert you to this, there's some wonderful purports there, where Prabhupada really explains how we came to the material world. how we fell from Vaikuntha, or from the Loka, from the spiritual world. This is famous for that. So all of this is something that should inspire us to not want to have to go through this. That when we're leaving our body, who knows when it's going to be, that our thoughts are absorbed in Krishna. We have a certain number of minutes, hours, days, months, and years left before that happens. So a real devotee, avyakta kalatvam, doesn't waste time. There's so much time in the day, and we can choose to absorb ourselves in Krishna consciousness or to absorb ourselves in Maya. Recently I've been going through, I'll just put a plug in for this. This is, we're living in an age of technology, and a lot of that technology, practically every other day. I've got this Wi-Fi, which was a lot cheaper than the last one, Spectrum. It's like $20 a month. I've been paying $35 a month, so I got that. So they have other things. They're actually AT&T. There's other things you think you're getting into. But every day, every other day, they're sending me some advertisement. Oh, you're very, very fortunate. They open the envelope. TV. You can have the TV cheaper. Because you're one of our subscribers. This is given to them. Everyone has TV. So so every day I put it into the recycle bag. But and just the other day I was coming to my apartment, and one guy was moving in. Huge TV. The thing is bigger than I could hold. A couple of guys were installing it. We got this little apartment. Now we got the TV. Now we can enjoy. Just imagine what that does to your brain. Many of us don't have to imagine. We probably experienced it at one point in our lives. I remember when TV started, back in the early 50s. Black and white, howdy doody. There were like 3 channels, 4 or 5 programs. That was it, But even that was, for a little kid, wow, howdy doody, okay. It's amazing. What to speak of all of they got now, so many channels, huge screen, full color, of course. And if you really want to get into it, the video games, the virtual reality, it's just varieties of Maya that more and more, so powerfully pull your consciousness. And when you're not experiencing it, it's like an addiction. You got to have your fix. I remember sitting in an airport waiting for my flight, and next to me was this lady, a couple of seats next. And she had the computer out, she had her phone going, she was communicating on the computer and on the phone at the same time and doing this. It was tragic, and they've done tests. They've done, they say, okay, we'll give you, college kids, we'll give you $100, $150 if you give us your phone for 2 days and you don't have your phone. We want to see the effect. All right, I need that money, to pay my rent. Okay. You give the phone, and then before 1 day is over, the heart is palpitating, you're having symptoms of separation. Maybe some of you have had some of that. I never had that. But that's Maya on steroids, This phone thing, and the now they want 5G. Most of us know that 5G is a danger, right? But they just say, yeah, it's going to be, we're competing with the Chinese to be the leaders in 5G. If they force us to have 5G, I'm going into the country. And there's no way I'm going to sit here with in front of the temple. Yeah. Anyway, there's unlimited varieties of ways in which the mind can be absorbed in non-Krishna, and it's a big effort and austerity to restrain the senses and fix them on Krishna. But because we're in Kali Yuga and Krishna is so kind, He's given us the simple and easy way to do it. No restrictions. This is a list of outcasts, those who aren't even part of the Vedic culture. The different provinces, the Hunas, those are the Huns, the Germanic, these are the Mongols, and that whole. And so there is in ordinary Indian, culture and Vedic history, they're not eligible at all. to progress in devotional life. They're more or less like animals. But specifically in this verse, and this was an important verse for Prabhupada because he felt that he was coming to the land of the outcasts and the Aborigines when he came to America. It says here, these kiratu hunan pulinda puga abir shumba yavana kasharaya. Kasa is Chinese. We used to have to put kasha des in the Vyasa Puja book, as if the intelligence organization in China did not figure this out, instead of China, because that would maybe bring down the police on them. But these and others, Papa, sinful, if they take shelter of those who take shelter of the Lord, in other words, then they can become purified. Shuddhanti. Everyone can be purified. So it is simply a question of determination and desire and sincerity, that we take up the process sincerely, and we keep our eyes fixed on the prize. And we by studying this helps us to become serious. Do we want to go through this? Do we want to wind up in another womb? There's this dramatic section in the third canto. We read it some time ago. Some of you may not have been here. Of the child in the womb getting reborn, and he'd start praying. He started praying. Oh my God! After Baba says 7 months, it's actually 6.5 of our months. That's lunar months, 7 months. And he's praying to the Lord. How have I gotten myself into this situation? When I come out, I'm definitely going to worship you. This is, please. But this is, apparently this is a conditioned soul, because anyone that takes birth, he's not taking birth in a family of devotees. And, of course, you get conditioned. The trauma of birth makes you forget everything. So you forget all that, and you're just helpless, And there's your mother, and there's your older sister, and you're in Maya. So, but the fortune, even if we do have to take birth, if we had some progress in devotional life, we get born in a devotee family, which is a great boon. Whatever you are exposed to in those first 5 years stays for the rest of your life. If you have some, parents who are into reading and they talk to you, and then you can, that'll stand you in good stead the rest of your life. What to speak of Krishna consciousness. So this is the lesson of this whole analogy, and we're seeing the Puranjan is every man, as I said. He's a perfect example. His mind is absorbed in that which he is most attracted to and most affectionate for, which is his wife and his children. You can imagine. Oh, and my animals, and my saving, and what am I, my elder parents? That's what's going to. So therefore, we have the detachment, vairagya, which comes with bhakti. Okay, I'll read this translation again. King Puranjan was anxiously thinking, alas, my wife is encumbered by so many children. When I pass from this body, how will she be able to maintain all these family members? Alas, she will be greatly harassed by thoughts of family maintenance. Any comments? Okay, I'm just going to read the next verse. Namai anashite bhunkte nasnate snati matpara mayrushte susantrasta bhartsite yatavag bayat. King Puranjan then began to think of his past dealings with his wife. He recalled that his wife would not take her dinner until he had finished his, that she would not take her bath until he had finished his, and that she was always very much attached to him, so much so that if he would sometimes become angry and chastise her, she would simply remain silent and tolerate his misbehavior. Purport. A wife is always supposed to be submissive to her husband. Submission, mild behavior, and subservience are qualities in a wife which make a husband very thoughtful of her. For family life, it is very good for a husband to be attached to his wife, but it is not very good for spiritual advancement. Thus, Krishna consciousness must be established in every home. If a husband and wife are very much attached to one another in Krishna consciousness, they will both benefit because Krishna is the center of their existence. Otherwise, if the husband is too much attached to his wife, he becomes a woman in his next life. The woman, being overly attached to her husband, becomes a man in his next life. Of course, it is an advantage for a woman to become a man, but it is not at all advantageous for the man to become a woman. So, there it is. And actually, what I forgot to mention, I was talking about all the technology. So clearly, historically, now of course we have these iPads and things. We can get Krishna Katha easily. But what technology did they have? How to help them fix the mind, on Krishna? Well, there's all this literature, and you notice how it also has a rhythm to it, right? Prabhupada was once asked on a morning walk, "What's the universal language?" And many devotees answered, "Music," which I think is a classic answer. And Prabhupada said, "No, it's rhythm. Rhythm is more basic and universal than music. There's all kinds of music. Some music may be unattractive, but if there's a beat, then it can attract the mind." And this is kind of out of left field, but I read this once. During the Nazi days, you've seen those pictures of those massive rallies he had, 1 million people, and they made. There's one lady who made movies. She was famous and made movies of it. So while the speaking is going on, they have drums playing in the background. Not to keep up with the music or anything, but just to kind of make the mind receptive. So rhythm is so powerful in attracting the mind and controlling the mind. And our acharyas have given us these wonderful, an ocean of shlokas. I mean, you want to think of Krishna. Okay, well, we can read the books, and it's wonderful, and the deities are there. That's another very important thing. But these slokas you can take anywhere, any time. I recently, I think I remember, I shared this with Raj. I don't know if I shared it with you guys. I discovered some of these verses I memorized many years ago. So this was just reading the Anchalila, the CC. It's full of them. And let's see if so Krishna is praising Radharani, Virade, her face specifically. Viradeti vadavarupatam shatapatam patashavari mukhe itikena sadasriho janam tudanamar timat priyamanam. Now, there's many ways of describing Radharani's beauty, and it's wonderful in the English, but this is such a attractive thing if you work on it, Viradeti vadavaru. So the moon is very beautiful at night. We've had our, the last moon of the short season, Puna moon has been very beautiful. Now it's starting to change. So the full moon of the short season is very beautiful at night, but during the day it fades away. And the lotus is very attractive during the day, very beautiful, exuding so much fragrance. But at night it closes up. Therefore, but my beautiful Radharani's face is beautiful both day and night. So to what can her face actually be compared? Sometimes compared to moon or lotus, but both of those are inadequate. So it's just one verse. And that Ancha Leela, I highly recommend the first chapter. Rupa Goswami is giving samples. He's being encouraged by Lord Chaitanya and his most intimate devotees. Ramananda Roy is there, and Srup Damodar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Haridas Thakur, to give us some verses from your plays you've been writing. He's writing this Dagta Madhava and the Lita Madhava. So he's very reluctant, he's very humble, and so Ramananda Roy grabs a bit of the manuscript, starts reading. And the first verse they read is about the holy name. You know this one. Tunde tandavanhida tingbatanute tundavali labdeye. Ramaswar, back in L.A. when I was still there, he asked me to chant it. He said, that's my favorite verse. But what this verse says, the holy name, it's so sweet. When I chant it, I want to have millions of mouths, to taste the sweetness of the holy name. When it enters the holes of the ears, I want to have millions of ears. And when it enters the courtyard of the heart, it completely takes over the mind. The senses become inert and become in samadhi and Krishna. So what I'm saying is that I can help you if you're interested in this. You gradually cultivate verses, and of course the whole philosophy is there. I mean, there's two categories of verses which sometimes mix, and those are the nectar verses and the preaching verses, or the philosophy verses. But some of these philosophy verses are also very beautiful. Prabhupada would love to chant the Samashitaye Padapallavaplavam Mahatpadam Punya Yasho Marare Bhavambade Vatsapadam Padam 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 Yad Padam Natesham. You have to be deaf not to be able to hear the euphony in that Padam 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 Padam. So the one who takes full shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, samashade ye padapallava plavam. Plava means boat, of the boat of Sri Krishna. Can easily, then for him, for those lotus feet which are Mahatpadam, the place where the whole universe rests, or the place where the Mahatmas take shelter. Mahatpadam. Punya Yasha Murari, the lotus feet of Murari, named for Krishna, killer of Mura demon. Punya Yasha. Who can guess what that means? Punya Yasha.
Punya, pious.
Yeah?
Yasha?
Piety. Yasha means fame. Just by glorifying him in his fame, you get piety. Punya Yasha. It's like Uttama Shloka in a way. If one takes shelter, then Bhavambudir Vatsapadam. Bhavambudir, you know that word. The Bhava Ambudi. Ocean of material life. You know, Bhava actually means becoming, changing, constant change. And what are the four basic changes? Birth, old age, disease, and death. So it's come to mean samsara, Bhava. Ocean of birth and death. We're trying to cross over it. It's very, very strong. There's a lot of waves. But it shrinks down to the water in a hoofprint of a calf. Not even a cow, but a calf. It becomes very easy to cross over. Bhavambudir Vatsapadam, that's the, Vats is the calf. Param Padam, because they've gone to the supreme abode. Padam Padam Yad Vibadam Natesham, not for them, Natesham is this place where there's Vibadam, dangers at Padam Padam, at every step. So very dramatic and beautiful verse, you know. So, now, if you memorize these verses, okay, you know, share them with your friends, at any time, you know, basically there's so many things we do, you know, and you can call it up, and it becomes a wonderful way of remembering Krishna, you know. And of course there's so many prayers you can offer to the deities, you know, Trayame Ananya Vishaya. So what I'm simply saying is that this is a big part of the gift that we've been given. The literature, which is basically in Sanskrit, and also, of course, the beauty of the Bengali is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita and other books. Songs. So all of that serves as a vehicle, a means by which we can fix the mind on Krishna. And it's you know, it's much more organic and much more delightful than the artificial means, you know, of the phone and all of these different things, which are just agents of Maya. This is and of course the best mantra of all. We've all memorized it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.